الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. Today, alhamdulillah, we've reached the 6th chapter of the Shama'il al-Muhammadiyya sallallahu alayhi wa sallam by Imam Tirmidhi. The 6th chapter is on the dyeing of the hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. باب ما جاء في خضاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. And the chapter after that is في كحل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, applying coal, or one translation is antimony. I don't like that translation, but coal into the eyes. How Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم used to do that. In this first chapter about the dyeing of the hair of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Imam Tirmidhi has 4 narrations. And he mentions the first narration from Abu Rimtha radiyallahu anhu. And then he says that this is the most accurate narration about this subject. But then he mentions 3 others. There's a difference of opinion as to exactly, did Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam dye his hair or not? Because from what we've learnt in the previous chapter, which is that the maximum strands of hair or number of hair that had turned color from black to white or grey, the maximum was no more than 20. 14, 17, 18, 20, according to all the narrations. So why would Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam have to use khidab or dye? So there's a big difference of opinion, though the majority of the understanding that he didn't use it. It was just a color of red which came about for maybe different reasons. One is, before the hair actually turns white, it turns red first. So it's a change of pigmentation. And number 2, it used to seem like that sometimes because of maybe the light when he used to oil his hair. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That is the majority opinion. However, others like Bajuri and a number of others, they believe that no, he did dye. Now, both have evidences because there are the ahadith on this. Although only 4 hadiths are mentioned here, there are a number of others, narrations as well, which Imam Tirmidhi rahimahullah has not mentioned, that kind of indicate. So those of the first group will then explain what those hadith could mean if what they believe is more accurate. So we'll be looking at that. Let's read the chapter, the narrations first. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم باب ما جاء في خطاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وبه قال حدثنا أحمد بن منيع قال حدثنا هشيم قال حدثنا عبد الملك بن عمير عن إياد بن لقيط قال أخبرني أبو رمثة قال أتيت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما ابن لي فقال ابنك هذا فقلت نعم أشهد به وإشهد به قال لا يجني عليك ولا تجني عليه قال ورأيت الشيب أحمر قال أبو عيسى هذا أحسن شيء روي في هذا الباب وأفسر لأن الروايات الصحيحة أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم لم يبلغ الشيبة وأبو رمثة اسمه رفاعة بن يثربي التيمي وبه قال حدثنا سفيان بن وكيع قال حدثنا أبي عن شريك عن عثمان بن موهب قال سئل أبو هريرة رضي الله عنه هل خطب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال نعم قال أبو عيسى وروى أبو عوانة هذا الحديث عن عثمان بن عبد الله بن موهب فقال عن أم سلمة وبه قال حدثنا إبراهيم بن هارون قال حدثنا النضر بن زرارة عن أبي جناب عن إياد بن لقيط عن الجهدمة امرأة بشير بن الخصاصية قالت أنا رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يخرج من بيته ينفض رأسه وقد اغتسل وبرأسه ردع من حناء أو قال ردع شك في هذا الشيخ وبه قال حدثنا عبد الله بن عبد الرحمن قال حدثنا عمرو بن عاصم قال حدثنا حماد بن سلمة قال حدثنا حميد عن أنس رضي الله عنه قال رأيت شعر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مخضوبا قال حماد وأخبرنا عبد الله بن محمد بن عقيل قال رأيت شعر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عند أنس بن مالك مخضوبا. So the word khidab in Arabic, khidab, kha, dad, alif, ba, khidab, it either means to dye or it means to color. And to dye means to color anyway, so the end effect is the same. The first hadith, hadith number 45. So we've covered 44 hadiths so far. This is the 6th chapter, and this is the 45th hadith. This hadith is related by Abu Rimtha. We've already read a narration of his before. He says that he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a young boy of his, with a child of his. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him, "Is that your child? Is that your son?" And he said, "Yes." "Bear witness to that, please." So he either said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Please bear witness to that," or he was saying, "I bear witness to that." The reason why he's trying to establish paternity here, relationship, is because in the time of Jahiliyyah, the relationship in terms of social implication was so strong between a son and a father, or a father and a son. In terms of social implication, what that means is, if a father did something wrong, the son could be punished for it. And likewise, if a son did something wrong, crime, then the father could be punished for it and could have to face the penalty. When Islam came, they said, "La taziru waziratun wizra ukhra." No person who's bearing a burden of a crime no person should bear somebody else's burden. And thus it was disconnected. Yes, there's a connection between a father and a son, but one should not be punished for the other. They are both independent individuals. So he was making this as a statement, invoking this Jahili custom. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam immediately corrected him by saying, "No, la yajni alayk wa la tajni alayh," meaning he cannot be penalized for you, you cannot be penalized for him. So he immediately understood where Abu Rimtha in his statement was indicating where he was coming from, and he immediately clarified that there's no such thing like that anymore in Islam. Obviously that has no bearing to this chapter, but it's part of the hadith. And, there he says, he says, وَرَأَيْتُ الشَّيْبَ أَحْمَرًا. He said, I saw the Prophet ﷺ's white hair red. So mark these words, this is what he's saying. This is what Imam Tirmidhi will call the most sahih hadith about this. I saw the white hair of Rasulullah ﷺ red. He didn't say it was dyed red, he said it looked red. That's obviously very ambiguous, because it doesn't prove that there was any dye. And Imam Tirmidhi, rahimahullah, is of the opinion that the Prophet ﷺ did not dye his hair. So that's why he brings this first, but then he brings the others, because it's important to also show the others and compare and contrast. So he brings this, makes a statement after it. In the previous chapters, if you notice, Imam Tirmidhi didn't make any much statement. He just mentioned the hadith, one after the other, after the chapter heading, leaving it to us to understand the connection. Here he says, قال Abu Isa. Abu Isa is his agnomen, it's his title, Imam Tirmidhi's. هذا أحسن شيء. This is one of the best of the narrations. So it's not the most sahih, it's the best. Sorry, I said it was sahih. It's the best. روي في هذا الباب وأفسر. It's the best that has been related about this chapter, about this subject, and it is the most comprehensive, most explanatory. Afsar, tafsir. But there's hardly any tafsir in there. But what he means is that it's indicating something very important, that this kind of really shows what it was. Because he says that the Sahih narrations all mention that the Prophet ﷺ did not reach an age where lots of white hair appeared, and thus it forced him to. Because that's what the conclusion we reached already, as we know from before. Abu Rimtha, he just clarifies that this Abu Rimtha we're speaking about, that's obviously it's his agnomen, his kunya. It's not his real name was Rifa'a ibn Yathribi at-Taymi, from Banu Taym. So, what this hadith is referring to, according to the commentators, is that he saw redness which was natural, not an artificially dyed red. Because this, as understood, redness is very close to the whiteness. Or it could mean, it has the possibility of meaning that it was due to khidab, it was due to a dye. Because it's general, isn't it? It's ambiguous, it's general. That's why we have a narration in Hakim which says his whiteness was reddish because it was colored with henna. Imam Abu Dawud has a narration which says that the Prophet ﷺ had mixed into his beard henna. So he saw it when the mixture was still there, because you have to leave it for a while. So he says he saw it while the mixture was the paste that you make to dye it. That's another narration. Imam Ahmed, there's a narration in Imam Ahmed which says that there he was, long hair, and he had this mixture of henna in his hair. There's numerous narrations like this. Now let's understand this carefully. This is a bit of a hadith discussion, meaning usul al-hadith discussion. What happens is that just because Abu Rimtha radiyallahu anhu is relating this, for most of us, we would just take that, we'd look at what he's saying in any narration and say, look, this is what it says in a hadith, khalas. That's it. That's what it says, we take it. The question is, that from Abu Rimtha, who is relating? Because Abu Rimtha radiallahu anhu is not relating to us directly. We have received this hadith through Imam Tirmidhi. He has related it from Ahmad ibn Mani, his teacher, who relates it from Hushaym, from Abdul Malik ibn Umayr, from Iyad ibn Laqit, and he says Abu Rimtha. So apparently, there are numerous narrators who have related this same meaning from Abu Rimtha, this same news, this same piece of information, but they all seem to relate it differently. So what Imam Tirmidhi is saying is that among all of Abu Rimtha's narrations about this is the best one. Because it leaves it open. Otherwise, and especially when Imam Tirmidhi is of the opinion that the Prophet ﷺ never, so he wants to keep this, according to him, this is the strongest narration. So the possibility is that, look, it is possible that once or twice, or very infrequently, the few hairs that had become white, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam may have, right? So that's a possibility. We can't totally ignore that possibility, but then depending on the strength of the narrations, you go with one thing or the other. Okay. So the Musannif, he's pushing the idea that this was the redness, the natural redness, and this had nothing to do with the dyeing of the hair. And those who did think that he dyed it, was based on that.